Welcome to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU. It is a new week. Last week for us for a little bit. Obviously, Thanksgiving break is coming up, and then we'll have to figure out the schedule from then. But yeah, it's a good Monday. Obviously dark right now. How you doing, Nithin?
I'm doing pretty well. I missed the last show because I've been sick for the last week, so I'm doing a little better than that.
Good.
But I'm excited to talk Illinois football for the first time in a while.
Yeah. Wow. Who would have thought? I didn't think that. Look, we all were pretty optimistic about this season, but after those first three games, I was on the train that Illinois might not win a game this year.
Yeah.
They proved me wrong on Saturday with a not quite last second game-winning field goal from James McCourt, who I'm watching a highlight right now. Puts the team up 23-20 with 3 seconds left.
You can call it last second.
It was last second. It just wasn't as time as expiring.
It wasn't walk-off, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't like a walk-off, but it was definitely in the last few seconds. Yeah, this came off of a pretty good, I wouldn't say great, but pretty good performance by redshirt freshman Isaiah Williams. He was back after 14 days off for COVID contact tracing protocols through the Big Ten. He rushed for a school record of 192 quarterback rushing yards. Passed for 104, had one touchdown on the ground. And I mean, for what it was a great performance. We kind of knew coming in, if Isaiah Williams was starting, Illinois is going to have to, get those rush yards, get him going. That's exactly what they did. They had 338 on the game. Chase Brown rushed for 131 yards. Mike Epstein only 18, but had a touchdown in a weird little Wildcat direct snap to him. And then receiving yards was only 104. Casey Washington led the game with 52 receiving yards. Daniel Barker, 22. Donnie Navarro, 15. Josh Matabebe, 15. And yeah, really what it came down to, I think, was, and I've been harping on them all season, so I'm glad they finally shut me up, the defense at the end. They came up really, really big.
Yeah.
Something that I did not expect them to do. They kind of look like the defense at the end of the game against Wisconsin last year, and that happens every day.
Every time.
Wisconsin last year, and they look like the defense that played against Michigan State, forcing turnovers, giving the offense the opportunity to go down and score. That's exactly what happened. It could have been a 29-20 game if James McCourt didn't miss 2 field goals. One was pretty close to out of range. It was a windy day. The second one was kind of just a shank.
Also, there was that goal line stand where
right.
I had 4 plays to get in the end zone and had to settle for a field goal.
Yeah, it was wild. So this was, I think, it was a fun game to watch. It was a game against 2 teams that are absolutely struggling this year, but it was nice because they were evenly matched. Nithin, watching the game, what did you like?
It was exciting because we finally got to see what this Illini offense can do if you let playmakers playmake, basically.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Isaiah Williams did throughout. I mean, 190 yards, it was a struggle through the air. He was only 7 for 18. He especially had a tough time being accurate. I mean, he missed a lot of open throws, but he's a young quarterback. That happens. But on the ground, I mean, he looked like Kyler Murray out there with his athleticism, just sneaking away from guys, using his slight frame to actually his advantage, and being able to find these small crevices. And he's just so quick and athletic. It made it so that when the Illini ran that sweep play 4 times, not 4, they ran it 7 or 8 times.
Yeah,
it feels like, and the Rutgers defense kind of knew it was coming. Isaiah Williams was still able to get 4 or 5 yards each time, and then he'd break a few off for 20-yard gains. And then you get Chase Brown involved, who's phenomenal in the game, especially in the second half. It finally just felt like this team decided we are going to run the ball, and that is what we're going to do, play in and play out. If we need to, we'll throw it through the air. That's how Casey Washington got that big 20-yard completion to set the Illini up with a 1st and goal. And it's how the Illini were able to just keep the ball moving while also having control of possession. And we finally got to a point where they just weren't punting after 3
Mhm.
plays.
Yeah, and that was wild because the way it started like a typical Illinois game, right?
Yeah.
It was they'd made some actual good stops against this Rutgers offense. 4th and 3 on like the 29-yard line. They're definitely playing the short pass, the short run defense, which is totally understandable on a 4th and 3 situation. And then Tony Adams gets beat on a fade route deep.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh man, here we go again. Rutgers follows it up with another field goal, so it's 10-0. Rutgers is really the defensive line is stopping the run at the beginning of the game. They're stopping the run. Obviously, Isaiah Williams isn't the most talented passer, so that wasn't going for him, and it looked like it was going to be another long Illini game. And then I think it was early in the third quarter, Chase Brown broke like a 20 I wrote about it, a long plus 25-yard run, something more than that, and that kind of was like the straw that kind of broke it, because after that the team was rushing really, really well.
Yeah.
As you said, it was kind of just like very continuous. You knew it was coming. Rutgers couldn't really stop it. It was really nice to see. Isaiah Williams, as much as he did on the ground and as he was also a little inaccurate, but I do want to give him some props. He made big throws, when the times were right. There was that one kind of free play where he made that, I think, to either Casey Washington or Donnie Navarro. And then the play that set the Illini up for that 46-yard game-winning field goal was on a comeback route to Casey Washington after whatever clock management that was. That was weird.
Yeah.
That was a bad thing. They need to clean that up. That's mostly on coaching, I feel like.
Especially since McCord had already missed 2 field goals.
Yeah.
You would have figured, hey, let's get to the 20 or the 15.
Right. So it was really weird that they were rushed. I don't know. It was weird. But on the last play before the field goal, Casey Washington ran a comeback route right along the sideline, and Isaiah Williams put it right on him, got them in field goal range. James Court obviously sealed the game, but it was good. I don't have a lot to nitpick. I think the secondary, it wasn't just, we talk about all the time how turnovers are kind of opportunistic and not really always, they're not always a good measure to see how good your defense is, rather like how opportunistic they are.
Yeah.
I think they were both at the end of the game. The coverage was definitely closing up. Jake Hansen is by far the best defensive player on this team.
Yeah.
In the run commit.
Although Owen Carney Jr.
Owen Carney Jr. is up there too.
Really trying to make a run for that title.
He's really good at the pass rush. He's one of the most consistent pass rushers, and he stops the run. But yeah, there was a play where Jake Hansen could have had his second interception of the game. The wide receiver was forced to play a little DB and knock it out of his hands. But yeah, Jake Hansen was all over the field doing great things in coverage. He played outside linebacker most of the game. I don't know. It was just, I think, look, we have a lot to harp on the Illini, but this was a well thought out game. They were down. They came back. A lot of stuff didn't go their way offensively in the fourth quarter when it had been early in the fourth quarter and in the third quarter, but they still were able to get the win. The defense stepped up big, had 2 interceptions late in the fourth quarter. This is the game you want to see, right? Obviously, it's not great because it's against Rutgers, but a win is a win, especially a road win in the Big Ten. It's never easy to come through. And yeah, I think the Illini performed really well, and this is something that they can really build off of because it's tough when you have no momentum, right? Mm-hmm. They started off the season with just no momentum, losing 3 in a row. But now they have something to build off of. Obviously, I think Nebraska is another winnable game that you can have, maybe gets that 2-win mark.
Very winnable.
But then you look at Ohio State and then Iowa and then Northwestern. Not a lot of win probability there.
Iowa's not out of the question.
Iowa's not out of the question, but I think Ohio State is, and I think
Ohio State is, yeah.
Northwestern is a little bit out of the question right now. They're playing really, really well, 4-0 up there in Evanston. But yeah, okay, so this week, right, you're going to get Brandon Peters back in practice. He's going to be eligible to practice, and as long as he clears his heart screens, he will be eligible to play on Saturday. This now will be the 5th week with 4 different quarterbacks. Brandon Peters hasn't played since he kind of stunk it up at Wisconsin.
Yeah.
What was it? 7 for 18, 87 yards.
It was bad.
Something like that. No touchdowns, no offensive score at all. Obviously, he's the quarterback you want back there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to have to rely on Isaiah Williams all the time, even though I think he's talented and I think he has a lot of room to grow. But Brandon Peters is what you have this program on. It sucks that he's been out the last 3 weeks. How confident are you in this team with Brandon Peters? Because kind of showed this week that if this team rushes well, they're dangerous, right? And as much as we thought this wide receiver talent was going to be there this year, they haven't. What do you think this team needs to do in the next, 4 weeks to really just capitalize what they are, capitalize the potential that they have with Brandon Peters under center?
So we've talked about this in the past few weeks, how the Illini identity isn't necessarily there offensively, and it was on Saturday. You got this rushing identity where the team wanted to consistently set up the run, and then when they had to go to play action, go through the passing game then. And it worked. It worked really well, especially in the second half. They scored 16 points in the second half, largely because they were able to establish the run and control the clock. My concern is that while I think Brandon Peters, I don't even think, I know Brandon Peters right now is a better quarterback than Isaiah Williams. I don't know if his skill set is best for this team right now.
Right.
Because it doesn't feel like Illinois is a team that's going to get 250, 300 yards passing the ball consistently. It seems more likely that they'll get 200 yards rushing the ball, and they'll be able to slow the game down that way. So in that sense, I'm a little worried about what it will be like to transition back into Brandon Peters-led offense, where Brandon Peters can move a little bit, but his primary game is staying in the pocket and making those throws, and then letting Chase Brown and Mike Epstein do the majority of the running. The thing I don't want to see, though, is to be halfway between those two identities, where you get Brandon Peters throwing 22 times, and then Isaiah Williams comes in and runs the ball 10 times in what becomes a wildcat formation. We saw what happened in week 1 when the Illini tried to do that. It didn't work at all. Granted, it was Wisconsin and this is Nebraska. That didn't go over well. So, I mean, really, ideally, what I want to see is I want to see Brandon Peters go out there and have a great week of practice, have a great weekend when he finds Joshua Matter-Bebe, Casey Washington, Donnie Navarro, Luke Ford, hopefully. We've been waiting for Luke Ford. But these receivers step up and the passing game finally contributes, because it hasn't really all season.
Yeah. I think you brought up a really good point in terms of what this team is and what we thought it was. Look, Mike Epstein's great. Chase Brown is great. Isaiah Williams is great. And that's really what we saw on Saturday. This team is really dangerous when they get out to run and when they wear the defense down with running. Even when the Illini had 287 pass yards with Karan Taylor. I'm not saying it was all because of Karan Taylor's feet. I think he made some great plays in the air, but they had to account for him in the coverage rolling out of the pocket. So that opens up a lot downfield. Brandon Peters isn't the same guy. He can rush. He can get out of the pocket. You're comfortable with that. He's not a statue by any means, but you definitely, he's not your first fear on the run at all. So it'll be interesting to see what this team reverts back to, because this team might be a running team and not a passing team like we thought they would be just 5 weeks ago. So,
Brandon, we kind of know that Brandon Peters is going to be the guy the rest of the season, unless something drastic changes.
Right.
We assume that Peters is going to finish it out as long as he's healthy. Looking into the future, Isaiah Williams looks like he's going to be the one taking over next year. Do you think his passing can improve? Because it seems like he has this dynamic athleticism that can work so well in an offense when you have other great running backs and you have good offensive line talent. Do you think that improvement will come through the air?
So here's my thing, right? I think the most complete player after Brandon Peters graduates is Karan Taylor at quarterback. He can really run. He can pass. If he keeps improving, especially with decision making, I think he could have a shot to start at quarterback.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But obviously there's a reason he's fourth string behind Matt Robinson and behind Isaiah Williams. I think Isaiah Williams is the most talented guy you have.
Yeah.
I think that based on what you saw on Saturday, he should be the one next year that you're already thinking about. Okay, let's mold our offense the best way we can around him. You're still gonna have Chase Brown next year, right? You're still gonna have an offensive line that's maybe a little depleted, but you hope to still have some talent there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, what? Isaiah Williams is still young. He's a second-year player, redshirt freshman, so second-year player. He's only 19, 20 years old. He has a lot of time to develop. He has a lot of time to become better, and I think he can. There's a reason why Illinois told him that you can come here and play quarterback. It's not like he's just running back there. He can make plays. He sees the field well, I think. So I think I'm comfortable. I'm way more comfortable with our quarterback situation now than I was week one when we were like, okay, who's going to be our quarterback next year?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's a year like the last 3 or 4 years where you've had to go get a transfer quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think it's in that situation. I think you can build your team around.
There's no Chase Crouches coming.
Right. So I think you can build your team around Isaiah Williams or Karan Taylor or even Matt Robinson if you see enough. I think all those guys are great guys for where you think the program's going to be next year. I don't think they're going to be good, but I think you don't have to go waste a scholarship on a quarterback. So yeah, but what I'd really love to see Isaiah Williams do is throughout the rest of this year, it's kind of not a wasted year, but it's obviously not what you expected. Yeah. I want to see him, take some snaps at quarterback, and maybe not just in the Wildcat when he's going to run, right? Maybe drop back a little bit, and not as a threat to Brandon Peters at all, but just as like, look, this is a very dynamic guy, and you want to get the most out of your offense. I think we're going to see him line up maybe at receiver sometime this year, like he did at the end of last year. I think we might see him at quarterback sometimes doing design runs, but I'd also like to see him at quarterback maybe throwing the ball a little bit. Obviously, not too reckless because you don't want him to throw you out of a game.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I'm very comfortable with Isaiah Williams, at least next year.
The good news in that department is that Illinois plays Ohio State in 2 weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably going to be a very quick blowout.
Yeah.
Which, we both imagined that. And
21-0 in the first quarter easily.
It could be 49-0 at half or 49-3, something like that. And then you're going to get some reps for Isaiah Williams against even the backups for Ohio State. That's a very
really
good
defense.
Yeah. So I do think there are opportunities out there, a la Northwestern as well. I so badly want him to be just an average quarterback throwing the ball, like an average quarterback in the Big Ten throwing the ball, because athletically he has that trait that you very rarely see with these quarterbacks, because especially in the Big Ten, there's a lot of pocket quarterbacks. You really just have Justin Fields who's able to run the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Isaiah Williams he's basically just another running back. It's what people talk about when they talk about Lamar Jackson or when they talk about Kyler Murray, that these guys are running backs that have quarterback accuracy. That's what I want to see from Isaiah Williams, because in college football, that's so deadly. I mean, we've seen it throughout the years how dual threat quarterbacks, even if you're just an average throwing quarterback, that's the reason why Tim Tebow was so good, why Denard Robinson was so good, why we see dual threat guys just become Heisman candidates, because it adds an element to college defenses that they're just not prepared for.
Mm-hmm. That's going to lead us to our first break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Illini football. And then it's the NBA trade opened up this afternoon.
Oh, yeah.
Big things have already happened. Big things are rumored to happen. Me and Nithin love the NBA, so we'll get into that a little bit when we come back at 107.1 WPGU. Welcome back to Illini Drive on 107.1 WPGU. So last week, there were 3 unvictorious teams in the Big Ten: Illinois, Nebraska, Penn State. That list has shortened to just Penn State after Nebraska beat them.
If I could go back and bet that Penn State would be the last winless team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
No one would have expected that.
They beat Penn State, scored 30-23 on Saturday. So now there are 2 teams with only 1 win have to play each other next week. That is Illinois and Nebraska. ESPN matchup predictor is giving Nebraska an 80% chance to win.
Wow, that's high.
It is high. I don't know. I don't trust that though. I never really trust ESPN. Nebraska, 20 points a game, 32 points allowed a game. They're averaging around 175 passing yards a game, and almost 200 yards rushing a game. What scares you about Nebraska, if anything?
I mean, the unknown, because Luke McCaffrey's only played one game. He looked fairly good. I mean, granted, he threw 2 picks, but it looked like he had a better command for the offense than Adrian Martinez. But it's the unknown with what Nebraska's going to bring, because they've played some pretty good teams so far. I mean, Ohio State week 1, even though Penn State hasn't won, they still have talent on both sides of the field. So I still think Illinois has a fairly good chance in this game, but I would have liked if this game was like 3 weeks later.
Why?
Just so we get a better understanding for who Nebraska is. Plus, the rest of the teams on the schedule, you kind of know what you're going to get. You know that Ohio State's going to be Ohio State. They're going to be one of the best teams in the country. It seems like at this point we know Northwestern is very good. And then Iowa's similar to what they've always been, maybe a little bit worse though.
Right.
So, yeah.
Wow. So I think the thing that intrigues me about this game the most, I don't expect Illinois to win. I probably won't have expected them to win at any of these games for the entirety of the season. But what interests me the most is this. Brandon Peters has had 3 weeks really to sit back and just study, just mentally get ready. We talked to Isaiah Williams about it. He said that was what he did for the 2 weeks. All he did was work out and, get mentally ready for his moment because he knew it was going to come this week. I think it's a good thing that all Nebraska really has to scout Brandon Peters is last year. Yeah. You got to take the Wisconsin game with a grain of salt. That's a great Wisconsin defense coming off a very long offseason. Nobody really knew it was up. That Wisconsin defense is established and has been there forever. And this offense, as much as it hurts us to try to cover this team because they have no offensive identity, which they seem to get on Saturday, but you have to assume that's gone if Isaiah Williams isn't the starter. Neither does Nebraska know the offensive identity. So it's hard to scheme around that. If Brandon Peters comes in and, he's in shape and he's healthy and he's ready and he's throwing the ball like we saw him throw the ball in the second half against Michigan State, right? Or like the effort we saw him at the end of the Cal game, right? Stuff like that. I think this could be the game where we see the culmination of what we thought the offense could be. Slightly dangerous on the run and very dangerous in the air. You're finally getting the quarterback you want back, the quarterback that can really throw the ball. We saw what happens when we're able to stretch the field with Karan Taylor against Purdue, 287 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns in the air. I think we could get a game around 250 rushing or passing yards and 2 to 3 touchdowns. If we can on the offensive end, I think it could be a good game for Illinois.
So my concerns are that when you talk about Isaiah Williams just spending 2 weeks and then it obviously translated into a very good game with him being phenomenal running the football, that seems more something in Isaiah Williams' own control, where he could be studying defensive patterns, looking at how Rutgers D-line plays. But with Brandon Peters, a lot of quarterback plays being like in sync with your receivers.
Right.
And he hasn't had that opportunity to practice with them for the last few weeks. And he hasn't had that opportunity to gel and improve their chemistry. Instead, he's been basically either working out or looking at film these last 2 weeks. And as a result, there isn't that on-field presence that you would normally have. So that concerns me a bit. I'm interested to see, though, on the flip side, if the Illinois run defense, which has been overall fairly good. I mean, there's been have been some troubles. I mean, the Minnesota game stands out the most. But Luke McCaffrey is going to be a running quarterback in this game, so he's going to provide that extra element that really the Illini have yet to see. It's a lot of pocket quarterbacks. I mean, Graham Mertz, you got Aiden O'Connell, and then Tanner Morgan, and now Noah, what's his last name? I can never pronounce the Rutgers quarterbacks. last name? Vedral.
Mm-hmm.
They're all pocket quarterbacks that will occasionally run the football in a scramble. Now you got to account for some more designed runs within the Nebraska offense.
Do you think Illinois' defense is up to the task?
I think they are, mostly because most of the issues have been secondary issues.
Mm-hmm.
And Luke McCaffrey doesn't scare me a ton throwing the football because this is only his second start of his college career. And his first start, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't great through the air. So I do have confidence that this defense can come to the stage. I think it's going to be a pretty close game.
Yeah, I think it could be a really good game. I think the spread is Illinois plus 15.
Really?
So 2 touchdowns.
That seems very high.
And some change. I think that's very high. I'm not very convinced by Nebraska. They have had a tough schedule though, but I just don't see them putting 15 more points on Illinois. I see Illinois putting up.
You're basically saying it's a blowout at
right.
that point. It's probably going to be a 3+ touchdown game.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. I see Illinois putting up 14-21. I don't see Nebraska putting up, what would that be, 35-42. Maybe I'm wrong, though. Maybe this defense fooled us a little bit in the fourth quarter.
It's not like Nebraska's defense has been insanely great.
Yeah. They let up 32 points a game, albeit to Ohio State. But Northwestern isn't a high-scoring team. They're just really gritty, and they get wins.
Penn State switched quarterbacks halfway through the game.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, look, there's a lot of factors, and I think this is the last game you can look at this season and be like, we have a legit shot in this, more than just if we catch them on an off day, we can make an upset happen. I think this is a legit shot. And I think, look, you have to build on last week's momentum. The thing that sucks, though, is Nebraska also has that momentum. So it's going to be 2 teams clashing. I'm very, very excited to watch this on Saturday. I'll be home in the comfort of my own home. I can write in my own home. But, yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, weirdly, I'm actually more afraid of Adrian Martinez than I am of Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a nice.
I think it's because of our defense, or Illinois' defense, is because you'd rather have a quarterback that isn't as accurate against our defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it does seem like Nebraska is going to be more run heavy than they have in the past. I also just have the last year's game when Illinois played Nebraska, where Martinez did whatever he wanted in the second half in the back of my mind. But I am excited to see if Illinois can keep that momentum going and finally get some sort of win streak that maybe leads to 2, potentially 3 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's not a lot of wins to come by in the rest of the season.
Definitely. It'll be tough. The road to 2 wins goes through Nebraska, man.
We never thought it would be like
this. Thought it would be like this. We were all predicting 4 wins in that regular season, maybe a 5th win if they can get a good matchup in that last game, a championship weekend game. But, hey, look, can't do much about it now. Illinois is 1-3. Hopefully they'll be 2-3 on Sunday. Switching gears a little bit. Feels like we just stopped talking about the NBA a month and a half ago. But it's back in our lives, and I'm happy about it.
Oh, I'm happy about it.
NBA season never sleeps. Today was the first day that teams were able to re-sign and trade players. This is a short period, too. What is it, only a week and a half or what?
I mean, all the timelines are changing a lot because you got Wednesday is the NBA draft, so it does start right before. I'm not exactly sure how the dates are, but everything is condensed because the season is starting in a month and not even a month and a half.
No, it's
December 22nd.
Yeah, 22nd. So a month and a week.
Yeah, so this is going to be at an accelerated clock with the coming days and just with this NBA offseason, because the NBA offseason has become its own separate thing.
Exactly.
Over the last few years, especially with the amount of change that's happened in this league.
Definitely. So we'll start with I kind of want to play this game, right? Good move or bad move. And we'll just go through the moves that have already happened. And
there's going to be a lot of hypotheticals.
Yeah, 2 hypotheticals or trade requests. And we'll see, we'll decide if it's a good move or a bad move.
Okay.
First, the Oklahoma City Thunder send Chris Paul to the Suns. They receive Ricky Rubio, Kelly Oubre, who else? Jalen LeCue, and maybe a pick.
Ty Jerome
and a pick.
Don't sleep on the the UBA championship team.
I will not sleep on the UBA championship team. OKC acquiring a lot of picks in recent years. The Suns trying to make that next step, become an actual playoff team that we haven't seen them be since Steve Nash.
Steve Nash, yeah.
Yeah. Good move or bad move for first the Pelicans. I mean, not the Pelicans. First the Thunder, and then second the Suns.
So the Thunder, I'm going to say slightly bad, only because I liked what Chris Paul brought to that team, and I liked that SGA seemed to enjoy playing next to him and learning from him. And it would have been good to have like another year of mentoring. You could then trade him the next offseason, and you'd still get similar value, I think.
Right.
But you got some picks, but you got some picks back. You got young players. It's not terrible. For the Suns, I think this is a great move because you're getting Chris Paul for only 2 years. Granted, you're paying him a ton of money, but
so much money.
You have Devin Booker on your roster. DeAndre Ayton's going to come up for an extension soon. So you have these guys that are ready to really compete. And what we saw in the bubble, the Suns were really, really good. 8-0 for a reason. And this team looks like they could be competing for a 7-8 seed this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with the Suns. I slightly disagree with you on this side of the Thunder.
Okay.
I think this is a good move. The team got a lot younger. They're still going to have a playmaking presence with Ricky Rubio, and SGA is just going to continue to get better. I think he's going to be really, really good in a couple of years. And then they have just a slew of picks. We saw this with the Celtics, right? Where you just have a bunch of picks, and you can either package those or you can turn those into really good players. So we'll see. I think the Thunder have a really good next 4 or 5 years to kind of build around. So it'll be good. In other news with the Houston Rockets.
Oh, a lot of news with the Houston Rockets.
Man, who would have thought their culture was that bad?
Well, they've kind of hinted at it because, I mean, D'Antoni didn't get re-signed.
I think that was the first part when D'Antoni said, "I won't be back." I was like, "Wow!" I didn't.
Well, but even just the fact that he wasn't fired, he was just, his contract ran out, which you almost never see in the
Right. So Russell Westbrook said he wants a trade.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a good move or bad move by Russell Westbrook?
A bad move. I mean, because he's not going to go to a situation better than this. Like the teams we're talking about are the Knicks, the Hornets, bad teams in the East that they might make the playoffs with him, but they're not going to compete really.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with you. Russell Westbrook, whether it's deserved or not, has had the reputation in the last 5 years as somebody that is very hard to play with and somebody that does not translate into wins. No matter how much talent is around him. It's a bad move, bro. You gotta. Yeah. That's tough because you're gonna be playing for a bad team for the next few years. Because there's no way a team that's contending is gonna take a chance on a point guard like Russell Westbrook.
He's also just not a good asset right now because his contract is
tough.
Very,
very big contract. Not a lot of upside for the Russell Westbrook. As much as I love Russell Westbrook, I think that's a bad move. James Harden requests a trade to either Philadelphia or Nets. First, is this a good move for James Harden to try to get out of Houston? Everybody's jumping ship. That'll be interesting to see what Houston looks like in the next year. And then good move to go to Philly, good move to go to Nets.
So I guess this is a tough one for me because I feel you go either way. I'm going to say bad move for leaving just because he has the culture already in place. And this seems like he'll get wins, but I mean, there isn't going to be a better situation for him to be the best player. Now, breaking down the two situations, I'm going to say Philly is the good move and Brooklyn's the bad move for him. Because with Philly, the trade's going to likely be like Simmons for Harden. Yeah. And then you still have Embiid on your team. You have a lot of shooters. It could just be James Harden, Joel Embiid, 2-man game. And that would be actually pretty fun to watch.
It kind of reminds me of the Clint Capella, James Harden situation where it was just like another version of Lob City, except you get somebody who's 10 times as skilled as Clint Capella.
It'd be more like Stockton Malone. Like it could be that.
Yeah, that's definitely a better comparison. I was just thinking about the James Harden aspect.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it totally frees up James Harden to do things that he wants to do. I think it also takes a lot of stress out of the half court situation for Joel Embiid, who's had to really carry it because Ben Simmons isn't a great player in the half court. And I think it really opens up a lot of what Philadelphia wants to do. I think they still need to somehow get rid of Al Horford, but we'll see how that comes down to it. So I agree with you. The Philly is the best move. Nets interest me, but I don't see how that works out. I had some friends telling me that it was like
too many cooks.
That's what I said. I was like, there's just not. I mean, there's too much going on. There's not enough balls in that. And somebody was like, oh, that's what they said about Golden State. The difference is Klay Thompson is a totally different player than, I guess, Klay Thompson's comparison would be James Harden. Steph Curry is a totally different player than Kyrie Irving. I don't know. I don't see how that could work out. Two, I don't know how that money's going to work out. I don't know who they'd have to give up. The Nets have solid depth. I don't know who they have to give up to go get James Harden.
So it would probably have to be Karis LeVert.
Yeah.
Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie.
No, you don't. That's so bad.
What?
I just don't like because those are guys that one. I mean, that'd be great for Houston. I think those are guys that you can really.
Really?
I think so.
Ooh.
Because I think those are. I really like Jared Allen.
Yeah, but for James Harden.
Well, if you have to give up Jared, Karis LeVert, and Spencer Dinwiddie,
I think
that's your whole depth if you're the Nets, right?
I think the Sixers package is way more enticing. I'm one of the biggest Ben Simmons fans in the sense that I think if you can create Giannis in a vacuum with Ben Simmons.
I agree.
So getting Ben Simmons for even just straight up Ben Simmons for James Harden, I think that'd be great for Houston if that's the return you're getting because Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, none of them are going to be superstars.
Right.
Karis LeVert might be a borderline all-star, but that's probably for the East. Like in the West, I don't even think he's sniffing that. Ben Simmons could control a team, and he could have your franchise set for the next 12 years.
I agree with you. I was just looking at it from a Nets point of view that you don't want to lose those guys.
I think, yeah.
Not for James Harden. As much as I
think one of those
James,
things. It's James Harden.
No, as much as I'm in that boat, it's James Harden. I think it comes down to then you lose a lot of your depth, and you lose your rim protecting in Jared Allen because
DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah, DeAndre Jordan sits on the bench for a reason. He's just not what he used to be.
That was such a scam to get Kyrie and KD. They just get to pay.
And then they fired Kenny Atkinson because he wouldn't play him. That's anyway. Yeah. Next move. Anthony Davis declines his option and is technically a free agent. All signs show that he's going to re-sign with LA just for more money. How do we feel about that?
Oh, easy. Great move.
Go get your money.
Mean, for both sides, honestly, because AD is going to get more money. He's going to get a huge raise. And also the Lakers are going to have him secured for most likely more than 1 year. I'm guessing he does either a 2-1 or he does a 4-1. Actually, no, it'd just be straight up 4. But this is a great move for both sides.
And then I think the last interesting one, DeMar DeRozan, who a lot of people thought was going to be on the Lakers just late last week, is not going to be on the Lakers. It just accepted his player option with the Spurs for $20-some million. Good move or bad move?
If we're looking at DeMar's side, probably a good move, just because
you think so?
He's not getting that money anywhere else. I think he's like a $18 million guy in the open market, just because the NBA has changed so much. But you get that $27 million, it basically allows you to make your decision next year, and you'll still have a lot of money in the bank.
The only reason I'd be hesitant if I was DeMar is because the free agent class next year is a lot better than what the free agent market would have been this year.
Oof, that's fair.
So DeMar is a top 3 free agent this year.
Yeah, but no one's giving him max.
No, but I don't think he's going to get a max. He's definitely not getting money next year. When you have Giannis, when you have Kawhi has a player option, Paul George has a player option, Rudy Gobert, Victor Oladipo, Drew Holiday, Kyle Lowry. I don't even know if he's top 7.
Well, I think it's important to keep in mind that like most of those guys are probably going to have decided for free agency. It's probably going to be either like Rudy Gobert. I feel like is going to resign. Victor Oladipo, he's either going to get traded or he's going to resign with the Pacers. Something's going to happen there. Drew Holiday, it looks like he's going to get traded. Like a lot of these guys, it feels like we're going to know by the end of the year. But DeMar, I don't even see him getting a ton of money this year.
Right. I don't know. I think it'll all come down to, like you said, who resigns, who gets traded, and signs with those teams.
Can I throw out some good moves?
Yes, please do.
Because I got some NBA draft ones.
Oh,
draft
okay.
coming up. First, Minnesota Timberwolves taking LaMelo Ball number 1.
Bad move, because if their goal is to try to pry away, well, first off, they just got, oh my God, why can't D'Angelo Russell?
Yeah.
I think D'Angelo Russell, at least right now, and LaMelo Ball are really similar players. I don't see that comparison a lot, but I can.
They're both ball dominant.
Very ball dominant, but also can facilitate. Yeah. But they need the ball in their hands to be really good. I don't know how that works out with D'Angelo Russell and LaMelo Ball. We'll see about that. Also, I know D'Angelo Russell and Kat have wanted to play with Devin Booker for the longest time. I don't know if that'll ever work out money wise, but
unless I think it's more realistic for them to go to Phoenix than it is for them to go to Minnesota.
So we'll see how that works out. I don't know who else you would get though. I was really looking at Anthony Edwards for that team. Yeah. Just a really big body slasher type guy that you want, and to get to the rim, get contact, is also very good with ball handling, but I don't think needs to have the ball in his hands to be really impactful. I think LaMelo that really does, and we saw with D'Angelo when he went to the Warriors. Even the few games he played with Steph Curry, he didn't really have the ball in his hands, and he kind of was in a limited role. Something totally different than we saw in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I've been probably on the record as being a very big LaMelo Ball hater.
Yeah,
because I saw him. I mean, granted, I only saw him once, but I saw him when I was in Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
You saw one of his games in Australia?
I went to.
I forgot you studied abroad.
Yeah,
that's dope.
Junior year. So last year when he was playing in Australia, I watched him. It was so bad. He was because.
Well,
Well, part of it was he was playing Bryce Cotton, who ended up being the MVP of the NBL. That doesn't always help against a Perth Wildcats team that was really good. But LaMelo was terrible. I mean, he has these plays where you go, wow, he can make that pass. Wow, he's just so big and he can attack the rim like that. But he also has like 7 plays a game where you're just like, he's not playing any defense. Or why would you throw a pass into 3 guys? And there's so many question marks. His shooting's not good at all right now. I
think that's the craziest thing about him playing in Australia instead of playing, in the NCAA. One, in Australia, he probably had a lot more freedom to do what he wanted to do with the ball and not conform to a system. But 2, we really didn't get to see him that much. We saw a lot of highlights, and I'm glad you saw him and were able to bring that, because I don't think I ever watched a complete Australian NBL league or NBL
that's what's
game with LaMelo Ball. I saw a lot of highlights. I tried to look for stats and stuff, and he doesn't shoot well. He's kind of streaky. He takes a lot of risks. He's been that way forever though.
And those were always the knocks on him.
Right.
When you watch him at Chino Hills when he's like a sophomore in high school, taking those half-court shots to start the game and then scoring 94 points by cherry picking. There's always been those concerns.
So I think that if he can't play defense in the NBL, it's going to be exposed really, really quickly in the NBA.
Yeah.
So
and it's not even that he can't; he doesn't want to.
Right. Exactly.
He doesn't want to.
That's not going to work in the NBA.
The thing is, though, this draft class is so that like he could still go number 1, and it's not a terrible pick.
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody that's like the clear number 1. I mean, James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, even Denny from
Killian Hayes, Obi Toppin.
I forgot about Obi Toppin.
Oh, if Obi Toppin went number 1, I wouldn't.
There's like 6 or 7 guys you could be like, okay, I can see that. Right. Yeah. There's no guy that it's like, or even there's no
Zion,
3 guys.
No Anthony Davis.
Right. There's no 3 guys that you're like, man, they have to go top 3 in a row or whatever.
Yeah. Very different than last year.
Very different. This can be easily a draft where you see, somebody who's the 14th pick be the best player.
I think that's what I envisioned, similar to I think it was the 2013 draft. When Anthony Bennett goes number 1 and Victor Oladipo goes number 2. Giannis gets in that draft. He's number 15 pick, and because of that, there's always.
It scares me about the Bulls having number 4.
Yeah, this is the one year I didn't want them to have 4.
It's tough. It's really tough.
Like the last, okay, so
It's had 7 3 years in a row.
yeah, so the Wendell Carter year, I think the 4th pick would have been Jaren Jackson Jr.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been amazing.
Right.
Or like last year, even DeAndre Hunter. Granted, I do love Kobe White.
I love Kobe White. I think he was not the steal, but definitely better than a few guys in front of him.
I do have a lot of concerns with Kobe White, though, just because he's a young guy that takes some questionable shots.
I love Kobe White. I have none.
But yeah, I mean, this is just the one year where, like, couldn't we have been the 9th pick and then like the 3rd pick next year?
Because that's the thing is, like, you like to let some of those guys go because I don't even think the Bulls know who they're picking, right? It's kind of like you don't even know you don't have an order, so there's not a right
like
pick.
LaMelo and Denny are at the top of their board, but you honestly have no idea.
I don't know. I'm not really sold on either of them.
I kind of like the idea of Denny more just because, granted, he's very raw, but this 6'9", like small forward hybrid playmaker seems kind of cool.
It's cool, but I don't know. I was looking at his stats. His per 36 is just not great.
His shooting's not great.
And I don't know. He kind of reminds me of like Ben Simmons, but
I would love to have Ben Simmons.
Yeah, I know you like Ben Simmons. I'm a little unsold on Ben Simmons. Do you have any other NBA takes before we hop into the NFL without taking a break because we don't have time?
Yeah, I'll give you one last quick one, an NBA draft one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Should the Warriors trade their pick at number 2?
It's very intriguing, and I've been thinking about this a lot.
Actually, wait, I stated that wrong. Good move, bad move.
Right.
Warriors draft James Wiseman, number 2.
Right now, I'm going to say good move. But they need to be looking somehow to package this pick and somebody else.
Probably Wiggins.
Definitely Wiggins. To get somebody that's better. I don't know who's out there. I haven't dove that far into it, which you need somebody that's better. Andrew Wiggins is not great, right?
I kind of want to see him with the Warriors for a season just because the Golden State infrastructure is a definite thing where it creates better players and it has a culture that helps with winning. We've seen it over the past, but Wiggins, obviously, oversized contract, undersized performance.
If Wiggins can be what Harrison Barnes was for the pre-KD Warriors, that's what you can really hope for.
Can he not be the last 4 games of the 2016 finals?
I don't know. Wiggins is scary, but that you don't have a definite big man.
Yeah.
If you're the Warriors, James Wiseman may be that. He may not be. He's not, like you said, like he's not an Anthony Davis. He's not a for sure thing coming. He didn't play any games in college. Played 3 games in college before he was suspended. And in high school, you don't really know what high school players are going to be, pan out to be just by high school. So it'll be interesting. I don't blame them if they take James Wiseman, but if they're picking number 2 and they're going to pick a player, that's the player to pick. There's no other player.
Yeah.
But I would be. You gotta look to package Andrew Wiggins in that pick somewhere.
I'd say it's a good move just because you're retaining the asset and maybe you can develop that asset where the number 2 pick's not too valuable. Like I wouldn't really, if I'm a mid lottery team right now, I'm not trading next year's pick for that number 2 pick. But getting Wiseman, maybe he can just play that rim runner role for his first year, and then you can kind of figure out, as you said, how to package that to a trade.
Definitely. So we'll see. I'm so excited for NBA. As we know, we just talked about them for the last 25 minutes.
Yeah.
We love NBA here. This is an NBA show. But in 20 minutes, the Bears are kicking off.
The Bears.
The Bears, 5-4 Bears, formerly 5-1, are kicking off against the 3-5 Minnesota.
Don't say it like that. Formerly 5-1.
Are they not formerly 5-1?
I mean, they are, but that's really sad. We're having a good show talking about Illini wins the NBA. Now you get me with that.
Now we got to talk about the Bears because they're the national game right now. They're playing Minnesota Vikings. What are they? 3 wins in a row? 2 wins in a row?
2 wins.
2 wins in a row. Dalvin Cook has been cooking, chefing it up in the backfield.
Oh, yeah.
Is this a game that one? I always think it's a game the Bears can win. I think the Bears can win any game they're in unless they're playing. Maybe the Packers. We'll see how they play against them, or if they have to play the Chiefs. I think those aren't games that the Bears can win. I think they can win a lot of games in the NFL. This is a game that they can win. they have a tendency of stopping good running backs, right? We saw it against Alvin Kamara for the first half, right? We saw it against Derrick Henry last week. They not stop but contain good running backs that are usually.
I don't know if Alvin Kamara they even stopped because he did play pretty well receiving the ball.
He played well, but I think he wasn't until the second half. He wasn't that good. I think they contained him pretty well in the first half.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple plays in the first half, but yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah. I think if they can limit Dalvin Cook to maybe 100 all-purpose yards and maybe one touchdown.
Oh, I think they win then, yeah.
I think they win because I think then it comes on the back of Kirk Cousins.
I'm glad to hear that.
And then it's on the back of Kirk Cousins against the Bears defense where he's historically in the last 2 years performed very bad.
He last year put up 6 points and we thought the Vikings imploded and were going to win like 5 games on the season, which they obviously didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year before, he has won a game on Sunday night where Eddie Jackson and that defense just takes his lunch money.
Exactly.
And you get the final game of the season when they have to win, and the Bears really aren't playing for anything because the Rams are just blowing out the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
And they lose that game, even though it didn't help the Bears to win that game.
Exactly.
Kirk Cousins doesn't scare me at all.
At all. So I think that's the goal of the game. Limit Dalvin Cook to 100 all-purpose yards and a touchdown. I know that's hard. He's performing probably better than any other running back in the last 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, and the Bears' run defense hasn't been great.
They haven't been great. I don't know. We'll see. I think I'm kind of over the Bears winning. I think I looked at their playoff standings. In front of them, it's like Seattle and the Rams and Tampa Bay. Those are the fifth. If the playoffs started today, those would be the 5th, 6th, and 7th seeds. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the Bears get over any of those guys. So I think it's kind of just a lost season at this point.
The time to get on the Mac Jones, Kyle Trask train.
You got to get on somebody's train. I don't know. I wouldn't even be mad if they just picked a solid offensive lineman.
I'd love to get an offensive lineman.
You're stuck with Nick Foles for next year, right? You might as well use him as much as possible.
Although with his money, you could use him as a backup. Like $8 million, it's a little expensive for a backup. But if you draft a quarterback, it wouldn't be a terrible thing. Plus, you're not having Mitch on the roster next year.
That is true. I don't know. We'll see. Unless the Bears somehow pull off the next, they have to get to my 10-6 prediction, they'd have to go 5-2. In the next.
It's not out of the equation.
It's not out of the equation, but I think they're losing both those games to Green Bay. Hopefully,
but it's winnable games after that.
I think it is winnable games.
Houston, it's Detroit, it's Minnesota twice. What other games am I missing?
Jacksonville.
Okay, very winnable game. Jacksonville.
Right. But my thing is like they're gonna have to overtake the Rams, who I assume will be there at the end, or they have to at least get one game over them because the Rams beat them this year.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But it is Bears football tonight. Hopefully we get some good plays. Hopefully Khalil Mack demolishes Kirk Cousins. That's all I live for.
You got a prediction?
This offense scares me so much. I don't think they can score that much. I'm gonna say 17-13 Bears. Bears win.
I'm gonna say 21-17 Vikings.
Mm-hmm. That's probably a more accurate prediction.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. Well, this has been Illini Drive, 107.1 WPGU. Tomorrow's obviously Gabby and Josh coming at you with the same stuff we talked about today. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your Monday for me and Nithin.